What up?
What is up, everybody?
How's it going? We are the Admirals of AI.
We're in the Palace of the Dog, back at home base.
Yeah. It's been a while since Shane and I were on stream next to each other.
Yeah, normally it's been, actually a couple months, I think.
I think so.
It's been like
right?
almost 2 months since we've been in person.
Now we're chilling.
So good to be back, drinking some Celsius.
Yeah, we're sponsored by no one, actually. But there's these guys from this company called Trada NYC, and they don't like Celsius, so we're drinking this on purpose.
Yeah, maybe they're watching. We have a pretty jam-packed show today. We're probably going to go a little over an hour. We're going to learn a little bit about some of the stuff that Abhi did last week at the Arize conference. We're going to see a little bit of a Mastra Speed Run. So if you haven't seen some of the stuff we've been shipping, we're going to give you a kind of the really quick, this is all the stuff that Mastra can do, because I think it's kind of cool to check in every once in a while and see all the things that we've been doing over the last 3 months. We're going to bring Tyler on from the Mastra team and talk some AI news. Then we're going to have a special guest. We're going to have Matt from Netlify come on. We're going to talk about their agent week. We're going to talk about AX, all kinds of stuff.
Also, should plug one last plug for y'all. We have a second edition of the Principles of Building AI Agents. It has about like 50 more pages in it because we learned some shit since the first edition. So if you haven't gotten it or have read it yet, mastra.ai/book.
Yeah, I'll put that up on the screen, maybe. There it is.
But without further ado, I guess I'll get started. So
tell us, what was the Arize conference last week, and who was there? What were they talking about, and why did they invite you?
Dude, honestly, I still don't know why they invited me, but
why the hell were you there?
Hey, we already got a chat from Alex Booker. What up, dude?
Hey, dude.
We know you. Matt.
Yeah, the Matt.
The Matt.
Yeah, you saw him on Friday too.
Yeah, I had drinks with him on Friday.
Yeah.
At the Work OS had a startup happy hour, and I probably drank quite a few beers. It was great. We gave out quite a few books there too, and met a lot of you, so that was awesome. Arize conference was last Wednesday. If you all don't know, Arize is a observability evals platform. I think they started like 2022, 2023 or something, and they throw this conference every year called Arize Observe. I think there were 700 attendees. It felt really like crowded in there at times. And they had talks from people from Llama Index, Crew AI, Leda, you name it. They had some talks there from Anthropic, etc. Salesforce was there. That was cool. Like I think Agent Force has some opinions on evals and stuff. And then there were a lot of other startup heads there, like people who were trying to do their own companies, a lot of YC companies doing evals. And so I think like three major things I kind of took away. So the keynote was good, and the whole event was tastefully done. So like if you're trying to throw an event in SF like that has this many people, you got to come correct on the venue and the food and the drinks, because that's like they set the bar. Like all these are setting the bar higher, which means it costs more money to throw these events for sure. And then this one had like cool T-shirts you could print. Like it's a total thing, because you're paying so much for the ticket, I think. So so that's one. Two, and I think that's why we got invited, is Arize themselves, their TypeScript numbers are going up. And they haven't really focused on TypeScript. Neither has anyone, right, doing this stuff.
Yeah. And
they're noticing TypeScript adoption going up. So who'd they call? The TypeScript people, us. And, Sam was going to go. He couldn't go, so I went instead. I was on a frameworks panel, me, Leda, Llama Index, and Crew AI. And there was this article that they wrote about it. Apparently it was a spicy takes only. And like they started the panel saying like, oh, what are your spicy takes on frameworks, etc. You guys should read the article, because I think if you read the article, I fucking won the panel. Honestly, like read the fucking thing, because I totally won, honestly.
I shouldn't be surprised that you had the spiciest takes.
That's true. I did say LangChain sucks like once. Only once though, so that wasn't too bad. But it did definitely started the conversation and let people feel more relaxed to speak their mind, because I already like blurted out the thing that you probably shouldn't say, right? So, but I think like notably, like I talk mad shit about A to A, even though we support it, but I talk mad shit. I talk mad shit about multi-language frameworks and how they don't work, which is like a kind of an opinion of ours. I also had this dope line where I'm like, there's like, what's the JavaScript version of Ruby on Rails? It's called Next.js, and it's not the same framework, So that was a sick line. So yeah, that's cool. So then I had a bunch of people talk to me about AI and JavaScript, and so that's just a sign.
Yeah,
it's a sign we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, so unrelated to that, the next YC batch starts, I think, tomorrow. And the thing that was interesting about when we were in YC, which was winter batch, there were, I would say, like 25 to 33%, like a quarter to a third of the people building an AI were using JavaScript and TypeScript. We heard from a company in the last batch that said they estimated it was 50% to 2/3 of the people using JavaScript for their AI agents. So I'm curious if that's going to keep going up. I imagine
I hope so.
The trend is in the direction of more and more companies just choosing to use JavaScript or TypeScript because they can just, if they know it, they're comfortable with it, they're shipping their front ends in JavaScript and TypeScript. Why not ship their agents?
Yeah.
Cool. Dang. Yeah.
Dude, the number of JavaScript in our batch was fucking low,
Yeah.
And just one batch later, they're like, yeah. So we're building the right thing, y'all. Let me show you what we're building. How's that?
Yeah. So to set the stage a little bit, so you on top of the panel, you also gave a 20-minute presentation.
I did, yes. Oh, I forgot about that. I did. I called it Building Agents in TypeScript. But the problem was it was the talk before lunch. And so actually it was a good thing because it created this aura of like people who missed it because they were looking at something else. And they were like, oh, I wish I could have seen that talk. Like I missed it because I wanted to see Agent Force. Don't fucking go for Agent Force when you can come see your boy, okay? So I'm going to show the demo I did there. We're not going to do all of it, just some things. Okay.
Yeah, we got like, you got to give like the 10-minute version because then Tyler's going to be here and we're going to talk some news.
Yeah.
So
I'll talk MCP server, client server, sure, networks, and that's it, or workflows.
Yeah, we'll do the first two, and if we have time, if we're waiting on Tyler, we'll do workflows.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to introduce two features that already exist. First is MCP support that we have. I think not many people know that you can host MCP servers through Mastra, so I'm going to show that. I built something kind of dumb, but it works. So
and also, try to fix the camera here. This is live, so whether you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, X, you can actually just comment on this if you have questions. Just shout them out.
Oh, my bad.
Shout out the questions, and we'll try to answer as many as we can along the way. Yeah, we're just here to have a good time. Talk about AI and JavaScript and TypeScript and AI news. Yep. All right, let's see the demo.
Let's do it. Entire screen. Okay, cool. Let's start with the code. So in Mastra, we can do MCP server hosting. Well, I mean, you can build your MCP server. We have a primitive called MCP server. And once you create the MCP server, you can fill it with tools. So for example, here, I just made my own Tailwind docs tool. I struggle writing Tailwind in general. And whenever I try to vibe code it too, something always goes wrong. I don't know why. But so I just made this like dumb docs tool for myself. And yeah, I have this docs. I passed the docs tools. Now I have a docs server. I could also pass agents into here, so we can just do that for fun. We'll see how it goes. I have this like Git Buddy agent that just fetches GitHub through a GitHub MCP. So I'm going to add that to my MCP server. Now, when you can run Mastra Dev. I'm assuming people know Mastra. We have Mastra Dev, which is a playground. Here it's initializing our MCP servers and stuff. If I go to my playground, you can go to MCP servers, and you can see that we have our doc server already ready to go. You can test these tools. Agents become ask underscore the agent name. So now that agent is part of the stack, which is dope. And then, this is the tool that I made. You can also add workflows to MCP as well. I'm not going to show that, but you can. And then you can get your different URLs for cursor and stuff. I want to use the HTTP stream URL, so I have that. I already have that in my cursor, so I'll go to settings, MCP, not that, MCP. And here's my doc server. I'm just going to restart it. And you can see now that there's two tools enabled. I have the get Tailwind docs and ask GitBuddy. And all I did to develop this MCP server and start testing it and stuff is I just put my HTTP URL here, and I'm off to the races. So let's test it out. So I'll just do, I was actually already testing this. So let's try this again. Let's see, ask my GitBuddy how many stars Mastra AI Mastra has, and print a console log on this file. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. So run the tool. It's calling it. Let's see what happens. Okay. I don't know why I did that.
Searching code base for console log.
Man, every time I demo some cursor type thing, I always get into these stupid freaking loops because now it's asking me to run it again. Except, right? I bet you it's gonna go an infinite loop because it doesn't know what console log is. Each time it gets the data. Anyway, I'm not gonna go through this, unfortunately. I'll just do the other demo. I need to understand. We'll work out the kinks. I need to understand more about Tailwind Flexbox. Please refer to my tool. Bad request. Do it again. Maybe the previous thing wasn't my fault at all. I don't know. Oh, I have to run this. So here it's using my Tailwind docs to get all the docs and then figure out which one and then go follow it. So anyway, that's cool. Yeah, so that's docs, that's MCP server. You could do your own thing, right? Whatever you want to do.
So we do have a question in the chat, not related to this, but it's kind of two-parter. Wish there was better support for deploying Mastra apps on Wrangler-based Cloudflare workers.
Which is pretty cool because that's our goal this week is to improve Cloudflare support.
Yeah,
from open source team.
We did fix some things recently,
but so I don't know. A lot more.
So I don't know when you tried it, but yeah, we're actively working on that because we hear you.
Yeah.
Satvik. Yeah, it's definitely something else we've heard from our users that we need to make it a little easier. So we are hopefully going to be doing that this week.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next feature and last feature we'll discuss is agent networks. We just released that last week, I believe, in our experimental. It's in latest in Mastra, but it's an experimental vNext kind of thing. vNext for us is where we put our code before we go to production, and replace and deprecate old stuff. So, I mean, not many people were using old agent network. And if you were, it was experimental from the beginning. So if you're upset that we're about to break it, sorry, bro. We had warnings, right? But I'm really excited about this new version because it works pretty well. But there's still a lot to test and everything. So let me show you that.
And we're going to be having Tony and I. So Tony's on the team. He's the one who's been spending a lot of time working on this over the last couple of weeks. We're going to have a workshop next Thursday, I think. So if you go to the Mastra site, you can see and join that workshop if you want a deeper dive. We'll give you the cursory overview, but if you want a deep dive, that workshop is the place to be.
Yeah. So agent network is our word for a multi-network system, a multi-agent system. The reason we call it a network, though, is it's not just agents that are involved with this network. for example, I've taken in my example app here, I have all my agents. I have a Git buddy, a Hacker News. I call them buddies for this demo for some reason. I guess it was like more like disarming if I came in with the buddies, you know. But this is Skynet under the hood, if you know. Ghibli, I have a Ghibli agent. I have like some RAG agent I have. But I also have like a workflows, and I also have memory. I could have passed tools into here too. So what the network is you have a routing agent that takes the prompt coming in and then assesses what to do, right? And there are two modes for a network. One is where you're just playing quarterback and you're trying to get a first down. That's the way I like to describe it, where the routing agent's job is to figure out who to throw the ball to, and then you get the first down, and then you do another message, right? Like you're talking with the network to then accomplish a task. The second is what we call looping, which is you give it an arbitrary task and you just leave it alone until it's done, or it thinks it's done, with the limitations of iteration steps and all that type of stuff, right? Like there are guardrails around this shit. But this is more like the full agentic spectrum, right? Like, here you go, good luck, I'll see you later type of thing. I'm just going to show the quarterback version because that's easy to express in UI right now. We're figuring out the other stuff. But yeah, cool. I'm going to go to my networks. Here's like my agent network here. I'll just ask it, what Ghibli films should I watch? And so it starts thinking, and I'll show what's happening in this thinking bubble. But in our playground, you can see it's fetched it used the Ghibli agent. And yeah. So, and once it's done, so it's still streaming. And I love Ghibli movies, dude. I have it tattooed right here, like the no face from Spirited Away. So like this was a great demo for me to make just for my own personal thing. And especially at the conference when I showed this thing, I was like super happy because it was tight. But let me show you what the routing agent did. So if I go in here, you can see that there's a decision-making process that the routing agent had to do. The selection reason was, hey, the user is looking for suggestions on Ghibli films, and I have a Ghibli agent. So it decides to do that, executes the agent, and then streams it back. So now it's like, like a quarterback. If I wanted to do one more thing, I can ask it to run a workflow for me. I had an activity planner workflow right here. So I'll just do that right now. I want to plan an activity in, I think Lucas was from Brazil, right? So let's see, Sao Paulo, Brazil on June 30th, 2025. So it's thinking again. Let's see what happens. I'll look at it when it's done thinking. Or maybe I'll just look at it now. Okay, it's done. So, for example, the decision-making process, it wants to find an activity. The resource ID is activity planner, which is the workflow I have, which is dope. And then I start looking at the workflow execution graph, which is what fucking happened based on this whole workflow. This workflow in particular calls the weather and then branches to do some activity planning, which it did. Honestly, that's dope. And then it hits the workflow steps if you want to look at them. And then you get this JSON at the end because that's how workflows return JSON. So once we have UI for loop, I'll come back on stream and I'll show you the dangerous times a loop can do and some dangerous shit that you could pull with one. But this is really sick. So that's it. Thanks.
All right. So that's some updates. If you haven't seen what we've been cooking over here, Amjad says it was a game changer. So yes.
Oh wow, cool.
Definitely try it out. It is still experimental, but it's getting much more stable, and we're getting really close. So really excited about Agent Network.
Ooh, the guy with the aura is in. Asked us a question. What streaming software you use? Restream?
Restream is what we're using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep aura farming, dude.
Yeah. All right. We're going to bring in another Tyler from the Mastra team here. We're going to be talking about some AI news, some of the stuff that we've seen over the last week. We like to try to keep you updated on the things we're reading and learning because, we have a channel in our Slack called Kindergarten because that's how it feels every week. We're just in kindergarten here trying to drink from the fire hose. How's it going, Tyler?
What up, dude?
How you doing?
Good, good. Glad you
That's a sick demo.
could join us. For those that don't know, Tyler, you have your own stream that you do with Daniel from the team sometimes.
Yep.
But you're also our resident. You keep us updated on all the AI news.
He's our news correspondent.
Yeah, you're the Mastra news correspondent.
I like to stay up to date normally. The last week I haven't as much, but yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it moves so fast. You gotta keep your eye out.
Yeah, you take a 1 week vacation from keeping up, and you're behind.
It's true.
But we do have some news articles here that we're going to be going through, some different things. So first one happened last week. I don't know why I'm not signed in, but that's okay. You don't need to be. So the first
I'm
one.
stoked about this one.
All right. So Open Router raised a decent chunk of money. Some would say that's a decent chunk. I mean, I think it's a decent chunk, unless you're an OpenAI, unless you're on the OpenAI team and just got poached by Meta, then maybe it's not that much to you.
An OpenAI employee could invest this money by himself.
Yeah, they use their signing bonus. And for those that aren't following, it seems that unrelated to this topic, but Meta did poach a bunch of people from OpenAI and other companies and gave them insane signing bonuses, or at least insane contracts.
There's like this graphic of people getting poached, like a wanted list. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll pull that up. You should find that. I think it was like TBPN or something shared it. Anyways, Open Router raised a bunch of money, well deserved. We like Open Router. Tyler, you use
awesome.
Open Router quite a bit, right?
Oh yeah, all the time. This isn't surprising at all that they were able to raise 40 million. They're probably worth. I would think
don't
they're
know,
actually probably
though.
worth
What
more
is
than
Open
that.
Router?
Yeah. What is Open Router?
So you get a single OpenAI compatible endpoint where you can hit like basically any model. So Gemini, OpenAI, Anthropic, really everything. So you just change the model name in the endpoint. You get all like the open source models too. And then I think also there's like some load balancing that happens as well, which is really nice depending on the provider. Yeah.
And then here is in other news.
That's so funny.
Poached. All these people were apparently poached by Meta. So, Meta's spinning up some teams over there.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. But that is a lot of people. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of OpenAI employees.
Yeah. They definitely went hard after OpenAI for sure.
It's going to be a war, dude. I'm down. I'm down to see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can keep chugging along here. So I thought this one was interesting. And let me share this other screen. So this came out last week, kind of mid last week. And it's basically introduction to deep research in the OpenAI API. So I think one of the things that was interesting is they basically talked through and they kind of open sourced a lot of the code that in order to basically make your own deep research assistant using their APIs, which is pretty cool because it's not actually that much code. Yeah. And so there's a lot you can learn from it. Unfortunately it's in Python, but what do you do?
We should make a Mastra version of this.
That's actually a good idea.
We should definitely.
Yeah, that's the follow-up takeaway for this is we should just take this Python code and actually make it look better. But they talk
code.
What's that?
Just give it a Claude code. It'll be ready in like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Maybe we can ship it here during this news segment. But it talks about it kind of has nice graphics of how it works. You have this user query, potentially a rewriter, or you get all the details. If you've used O3, you'll know that sometimes it'll ask you for more details and sometimes it doesn't, right? And that's basically what it's doing here, right? It's saying, do I have enough information to solve the problem? Okay. Just continue on. Otherwise, ask for more information. And it only ever seems to ask once, right? It just asks one time for more feedback. Then it has this enriched prompt, calls deep research. So it's a really good, again, way to learn. If you're trying to build your own deep research assistant, you can kind of take prior art rather than having to figure it all out yourself.
You can also build this with Agent Network.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. And that's the other option, right? It's like Agent Network should make it so you don't have to write this code. But even if you did, it's not too bad. Yeah, it's not bad. And then in other news, a new model dropped last week, Tyler.
Is this the
I don't know if I know how to even pronounce it.
Yeah,
so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I downloaded it this morning. I was gonna try it, but then I realized, oh, it's actually too big.
Yeah,
to run it on.
that's yeah. Okay, Tyler, how do you pronounce it?
I don't know. I'm not even gonna try. I'll just.
I think it's Hunyuan.
Hunyuan.
A13B.
However you pronounce it.
Dude, they make cooler names for this shit, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
what does that even mean? I'm gonna look it up. What is Hunyuan?
So I don't know, Hunyuan. A13B, that means there's 13 billion active parameters. At least that part I know. I don't know the first part. So I think this is it's like an 80 billion parameter model, but it runs way faster because the whatever mixture of experts just activate 13 billion parameters at a time.
Hunyuan means round.
Round. I mean, the logo's round, so.
Man, doesn't look like a butthole. That's good.
All right, we're gonna share.
Dude, it's the first one that doesn't look like a butthole.
Okay, so it's a mixture of experts model. So 80 billion total parameters, but 13 billion active. That's where you see the A13B. So how does that work, Tyler? When you have active parameters, it basically only then uses certain parameters based on your what the mixture of experts model decides.
I think so. I don't know the exact technical details, but I know that it runs a lot faster.
Yeah.
Rather than activating all 80 billion, which that's what I think a regular model does. Just the whole entire size of parameters gets activated.
And so this person, I think this one's a little tangential, biased, potentially outperforms bigger models. We'll see, but at least in their case, it did. Has reasoning built into it.
It looks cool. I mean, I wish I could try it out. The file size of the model is 40 gigabytes.
Oh, damn.
Which is you need 2 GPUs for that, for consumer GPUs. So I only have one.
The one thing that, so it comes with 2 new benchmarks. I think that's a strategy by these model companies. They create their own benchmarks so they're the best. It's kind of like
Mistral did that.
Yeah, it's like when the car companies, you'd see we won this award 5 years in a row. Well, if you look, it's because they created the award 5 years ago to give it to themselves. It's we're the best on this benchmark we just created. Okay.
You have won the Toyota Excellence Award. You bought a Toyota.
It's kind of of course you won your benchmark, Dude,
I will say this though.
That's funny.
The Chinese models don't look like buttholes. They got a whale and this round thing. So that's just interesting. Maybe they're maybe they know something as well.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. What else we got to talk about today? So, in other related news, the VS Code Copilot chat was open sourced. Yeah. Let me share this. For some reason, sharing isn't working very well today, but We're in a
Yeah, I
different
think this
setup.
is just
right?
like
Go ahead.
in the
Tyler.
last few days it got open source, it looks like.
Yeah, and so tell me a little bit about this.
I mean, I don't really know actually. I just started looking at this maybe 30 minutes ago. It's cool though. I guess this is like, their whole, Copilot sidebar thing in VS Code. I would assume
Yeah.
that's what it is.
So they just open sourced it. That's cool. GitHub
Yeah.
Copilot.
You can start like building your own, views on this too. The
That's awesome.
the UI frameworks in our space are also trying to build like automatic like the code. They want to. You should be able to like pull a chat and then theme it. Like maybe it's like a VS Code theme, or it's like a support ticket or support kind of theme. So that's pretty cool. But this one has logic in it too, like the model selection and all that.
Yeah. And VS Code's kind of come into play because they were the first ones, at least so they claim, to fully support the MCP spec, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's like at a certain point in time because obviously the spec's still pretty actively changing.
Yeah,
But
a new version came out since then.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. They've already released a new version. So, but at least at one point in time, they were the furthest along. So, I mean, they're definitely doing some things. I know I'm still a Cursor user over here, but I've been also using Claude Code within Cursor, and it basically in its own tab because Claude Code has been pretty sweet.
Dude, the future is coding agents that are not IDEs at all. I think, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So fuck VS Code.
Tyler just wants to get back into NeoVim.
I'm in there all day now. Claude Code.
You just use Claude. You're back. You're back already. You couldn't. You popped out of NeoVim for a while, and now you're back. You found a way back in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We do need to try the Gemini CLI too, and put it through the same ringer. Maybe it's.
I tried it out last week, and I think it needed a bunch of bug fixes. That maybe those are out already, but it kept getting into weird loops. Anytime it would switch from Pro to Flash, it would just get stuck forever, basically.
Yeah. The marketing on that was solid, though. Just saying.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably going to end up using both of them, like having the million context window with Gemini. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, like digest a code base real quick.
Yep. Make a plan. Give it a Claude.
Got this message. Don't shit on VS Code. We still love it. Sorry, dude. My bad.
Hey, to each their own, right?
Just my opinion.
Yeah.
My opinion.
I mean, has Tony on our team started using
Cursor.
Claude Code? Because once he learns he can get back into NeoVim, he'll be back.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All you NeoVim guys and girls out there, I don't know how you do it, but all right, you do you. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about anytime there's a Simon Willison blog, we seem to cover it here because he's been posting a lot of great stuff. This one looks like yesterday. It's kind of short and easily digestible, so I like that.
Yeah.
But it's like how to fix your context. So it's just how to fix your context, posted yesterday. We can kind of maybe read through some of it together. He summarizes 4 common patterns for context rot, which I guess you can click into that, which is context poisoning, context distraction, context confusion, and context clash. So there's a quick summary. You can all read that if you're tuning in. Tyler, did you have a chance to read this?
Yeah, I did. I think it's interesting. The thing I really like about the whole like context engineering trend or whatever that people are talking about these days is that's basically what memory is, right? It's just managing the context window, and that's something we're focusing on a lot at Mastra. So everybody talking a lot about it really helps us, think about it and kind of see how other people are thinking about it. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of people are basically saying context engineering as a term is replacing prompt engineering, which I guess it's just new. It's new terminology, right, for similar things. But I think this is at least a better term than prompt engineering. But
I think so too. I don't know.
It just shows they were getting super pedantic about shit. And
Yeah.
people want to spend time naming things versus actually making innovations happen. I respect Simon and stuff, but like, and all this article is great, like about the different scenarios and stuff. But then what's not cool is all this argument on Twitter over the naming of context engineering versus prompt engineering, and
Yeah.
people arguing about what memory is and not and shit. Why don't we all just like keep making moves instead, instead of like just arguing about this stuff?
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
Like even this is divisive, right? Which is dumb because it's not. It all makes sense, but it would be considered divisive given context
article?
engineering as a thing.
You mean the article is divisive?
No, just like
That
the
we're looking at?
like the topic.
Oh, okay.
yeah. I mean, but on the flip side, you have to, if you don't have terms that you can talk about, it is hard to understand what you're actually talking about, right?
That's
At
true.
the end of the day, I think context engineering is just engineering. I think,
Yeah.
But I think that was a tweet from David Kramer. He tweeted that last week, and that's of course got some contention, right? I mean, as it would, right?
Yeah.
But I think he's right. But at the end of the day, there's like classifications that I think can be helpful. I don't know. So I'm on the fence. I think it's good to have terminology that means something. But now, of course, the problem when you add terminology is then people who are outsiders, it makes them feel dumb because they have to learn all these terms just to figure things out. And all you're doing at the end of the day is just figuring out like what to tell the LLM to get it to do something.
Yeah.
And so that's all we're doing, right? Is like, how do we fill what is called the context? How do you fill the context window?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
These four situations Simon's talking about in this post are 100%. I've experienced every single one of them. And the one that pisses me off the most is context clash, because if you have like long-term memory and you're getting all messages, right? Sometimes, depending on the model, depending on the time of day, month, or whatever, it can like you have new tool calls that are essentially later date than old tool calls, but sometimes you get the wrong response back because it's using previous tool calls data. So like, I'm sure everyone has gone through these four scenarios if you're doing some serious work, so it is like context clash. I don't know if the right name, but that's some real life shit.
So a couple things from the chat. Satvik said, I created an AI SDK provider to use the Gemini CLI auth when running locally. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
Also, Lucas asks, are you guys recommending using Mastra in production? So a lot of teams are already using Mastra in production. Yeah. And I will say with this AI stuff, if you're comfortable putting an LLM in production, because that is where your biggest risk factor probably is, it's not going to be in the Mastra code. It's going to be in, do you want an LLM to be able to formulate a response and give it to your users? Because that is where the biggest risk is, which is why you need things like guardrails and evals and all that stuff. If you're comfortable letting the LLM provide a response and you're going to then provide that response to a user, I don't think the Mastra code is going to be where you're going to be spending most of your time worried about.
Yeah.
So yes, there are a lot of teams already using it in production. All right, we got anything else on the list? Oh, speaking of, I need to.
I think that's all the news.
Yeah, you want to share
That's it.
Share some more workflow stuff? I got to send over an invite here to our next guest.
I'm gonna drop.
Later, dude. Thanks for coming.
Hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, we'll see you.
See you.
All right. I guess we can look at more stuff while we wait for Matt, the Matt, to come.
The Matt.
So let me go back here. Got too many tabs open now. Okay, cool. Sick. Okay, so we were looking at the network, and we executed a workflow. We executed a regular agent call. And in this, you saw this execution graph we've been putting a lot of time into the execution graph. So I'll just like do another workflow here. Let me add this. This is like the activity planner. It just shows like a logical control flow. Our workflow system, we're expanding it in ways that I'm very excited about. Things like temporal Cloudflare workers are incoming. They're imminent, as we would say. And we really like our workflow syntax now, the type safety of it. And then we wanted the visualization of the API. Like we wanted the API to be able to do visualization. So, we have this graph set up. We can also like see and visualize the runs that happen. So if I do like San Francisco here, so let it run. So each step highlights as it completes. And then now, it's going through this. And we can actually go to each step and be like, what was the input here? What was the output? This one is essentially, turn this up. This one returns the weather, right? So like, okay, cool. Typical weather use case. And you can see the input data here was this, because it just takes it from the previous step. Then if I go into here, I can see the input, which is that previous step, and the output, which is like what the agent planned. And this was running an agent in this step, a Mastra agent, to then like plan activities and stuff. And then lastly, we had this like mapping where you can map previous steps and then return new data, much like a map, right? And so you can see that this was the input, the output flattened it, and then you have like a config of like what happened here. So that was cool. You can see the result. So this should help, building with workflows. And here you can see the run. So this was the run here. I don't know where there's a place that's raining today. If anyone else knows, maybe the rainforest or whatever. But let's just.
Is anyone watching where it's raining?
Maybe, I don't know. It's summer, so Chicago. Let's just see. So I'm going to run this for Chicago. It's not raining there, unfortunately. But we'll just wait till this goes. I don't really care about the response because I just showed it to you, but all the runs are calculated here. Or maybe. I don't know. I'm going to refresh the page. So yeah, this was the Chicago. And here's my San Francisco run. And so this is a nice, and we have APIs for all this.
Try Kansas City.
Kansas City
might be, or Cleveland. Kansas City or Cleveland. Or Buffalo.
Let's do Buffalo because the Bills are cool. Nope.
No. Well, the map is wrong.
The chance of precipitation. Actually, no.
Yeah, it'd have to be more than 50% chance, right?
Yeah.
Well,
it was very close. 48%. But anyway,
almost hit
so this like visualization is like.
Well, I mean, you could just change the code.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. The demo is priceless. But anyway, yeah.
So that was workflows. So we saw some agent network. We saw some workflows. What else we got going on? What else we working on over in the Mastra world?
We're doing evals V2 right now, which is gonna be good. We've got a lot of performance things going. A lot of bug fixing too. There's a lot of usage in Mastra, so there's a lot of bugs or like feature requests, things like that. So, yeah. Also, Matt's to be here in 5 minutes.
All right, so I've got a question here. Single agent got too big. Trying Mastra networks for sub agents. How do I pass tool calls from sub agents through the network? Can't figure it out, and I want them for displaying richer UI. So I'm assuming you're saying you want to, if one of the sub agents calls a tool, you want to display that tool in the UI.
We don't have that yet, but it's on the roadmap essentially.
Yeah, Lucas, I think that's a common. Honestly, when you have like deeply nested workflows, that's a problem. Yeah. When you have these like deeply nested sub agents, that's a problem. We've been working with Copilot Kit quite a bit to try to make our integration with them better, so we can do things like this, but also integrate it in with our clients so you can roll it yourself. So I think it's not easy to do yet, but it needs to be easy to do.
It'll happen. Like it should It should happen automatically. We're just not piping the tool calls back into the main response stream. So when you see like an agent gets executed in a network, for example, you don't know what's happened in the network call. You just know what happened, input output. But yeah, that's still experimental. So we'll make that better. Looks like we have some more questions.
Yeah, some more questions from Lucas. Two different Lucas. What use cases do you not recommend using the storage layer, or is it something you always consider essential? I mean, I think it just depends. In almost all complex use cases, you're probably going to need some kind of storage.
Yep.
But if you're just making a basic, let's say a simple LLM call, and you could just wrap that in an agent, call the LLM through that, maybe with some kind of system prompt. You wouldn't necessarily have to have storage for that. But I think in most cases, anything that gets to modest complexity is going to need some kind of storage backend, especially if you're dealing with workflows and you want, workflow state, memory, all those things all ends up using storage.
Yep. Couldn't say it better myself.
All right.
I keep clicking at the same time.
You take it.
After deploying agents, how do we observe or monitor their behavior? Is that handled through the MCP server, or is there another interface for that? Mastra itself has telemetry. It exports OTel. So if you have like an OTel provider that you want to like plug in or use whatever, you can use Mastra Cloud. You can use whatever you want. Sentry, Datadog, friggin' whatever.
There's a bunch of observability tools you could pipe into. So yeah, it exports as OTel.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can. Yeah, so it's not necessarily handled through an MCP server, but yeah, if you do deploy to Mastra Cloud, you get kind of the local playground experience in cloud, so you have that as an option as well. So
yeah,
many different ways you can deploy.
Yeah, and tons to improve there too.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Honestly, like we could have a whole section on just deployment of agents, right? Because there's a lot of different ways you can deploy these things, and a lot of different things and considerations when you do deploy them. But this is probably as good a time as any, because another place you could deploy agents is to Netlify. And so Matt is going to join us.
Dude, what a segue.
Yeah, that was not even planned, but it worked out.
What's up, Matt?
How's it going, Matt?
Hey, good to see you all.
Yeah,
good to see you too.
Good to see you. I unfortunately didn't get to see you last week like Abhi did. So,
I had to be there.
I unfortunately didn't get to hang out and have a beer or two. So,
four,
or however many you had. But yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. How's it going?
So for those that aren't aware, this is Matt, founder, CEO of Netlify, and yeah, we just want to talk about all the cool stuff that Netlify has been doing. Obviously, yeah, you have AX, you had Agents Week, you have probably a whole bunch of things, whole bunch of updates that we can talk about. So.
Also, he used to be our boss.
Yes, that is also true. Yes, yes, yeah. He was definitely our boss as well. So, but it's good to chat. So, what's going on over in the Netlify world, Matt?
I mean, lots of agents are building on Netlify these days and deploying to our infrastructure and using our workflows and collaborating with our users, and then people at the same time are building agents with those agents or on their own without agents, but more and more with agents. So it's more about agents building agents these days. Yeah. And as you said, like I wrote this blog post in the start of the year called the AX Agent Experience and Why It Matters, and it really captures a lot of what's my biggest focus on the company right now, right? Like that we're really in this really unique position that to me feels a lot like a bit more than 10 years ago when we launched Netlify. Back then, I was sort of a big believer in this like big foundational shift in how we would build from the web, and we would start like decoupling the front end, talking to all these different API and services, and we would allow like the front end to really be the real application in some way, right? Like, and through that, we would allow this new class of sort of front-end developers to become the actual web developers. And at the time, it's hard to sort of imagine now where front-end developers like very sought after. They are everywhere. They are experts in all these like complex frameworks and so on, right? Like, but back then, most people saw front-end developers as like not real developers. They were more like tinkerers and so on that would take a Photoshop file and like slice it into HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript, and then hand it over to a real developer that would like implement it in the backend and so on, right? Again, and part of what was so exciting in the beginning of that whole journey, and as we started coining the Jamstack term, and as frameworks like Gatsby started coming out and so on, right? Like, was this real shift where suddenly we allowed a whole new group of developers to really become real developers and build for the web, right? Like, and today there's like hard to get like precise numbers, but something like 17 million professional JavaScript developers, right? Like, they're very much real developers. And it feels like right now, it's just like such a similar time in the sense that the fact that these code agents really, really lower the barriers for like building stuff on the web by taking away sort of a lot of like, before you kind of really needed to spend years and years learning that layer of code and algorithms and so on, right? Like, now suddenly you can kind of like just poke around with agents until they figure most of it out, right? Like, and it works surprisingly well, and you can get surprisingly far, right? Like, but there's still this notion that people that work in that way are vibe coders, and they're definitely not real developers, and they're definitely always gonna hand it over to a real developer that can take it all the way and so on, right? Like, and I have a very like similar belief that if we built like the full, more opinionated platforms around it, and the full guardrails and the techniques to not just ship, but like iterate and roll back and manage rollouts and understand like what goes live and protect yourself from shipping something bad, and like put a few a bit more structure in place while these models just get better and better, then this new class of developers are absolutely going to be very real software developers, right? Like, there's probably just going to be like more of them than we can imagine today, right? And that's just really exciting. And it also means that like the most important thing I can do as someone building platform and infrastructure is make sure that that platform, that infrastructure works incredibly well with all these agents, and that it's really simple and approachable and easy to work with when you're working with an agent and not just on your own. And so that's just a lot of our focus now.
Yeah, and I think, maybe some people that are considered real software developers today, I don't know if they're worried about that, or they, but there is that, I guess, aura where they're like, you can definitely sense it. Oh, those, that's just, they're building toys. But, that's probably true. I think in a lot of cases today, like, it's probably a lot of toys, but I think we remember like it was just, that's just in the Gatsby days. Oh, that's just their personal blog. That's just a toy. It wasn't a real thing. And then eventually it graduates to a real thing. So, I think it's going to get there. The timeline is maybe, it's going to take some time for it to really work itself out, but I can totally see the path where we're going to get there.
Yeah. And I think it's moving. I mean, it's moving a lot faster than I honestly thought it would, right? Like, I started thinking this would be important a long time ago, and sort of set it as an internal goal in Netlify that we should be the platform for AI, right? Like, but when I first set that goal, I thought, okay, it's going to be really important, but it's going to be like really important towards like the end of the decade and so on, right? Like, and it's just it's happening much faster than that.
Yeah, halfway through. Actually, Matt, an interesting story for the audience would be your relationship with Bolt.new. At least like some origin story there, because you've been homies with those people for a long time, right?
Yeah, I was an early investor in StackBlitz. Wrote a little angel check back in the really early days there, right? Like, and really because like they had such an interesting technological bet on web containers, which for those that don't work, right, like Bolt.new started out as a company called StackBlitz, that were building a live coding environment in the browser. And with this really interesting pitch that, look, Figma became like dominant as a design tool in a world where before Figma, every design tool had been like a desktop app and something you downloaded and ran on your computer, right? Like, and what really made that switch happen in Figma's case was that they used WebAssembly to build like a real, like hardcore design app in the browser, right? Like versus a lot of other tools that sort of in the end could build some design tooling, but a lot of like the operations and so on, it would need to call out to a cloud server and so on, right? Like so Eric's original vision back when he pitched me was really this idea that if we want this idea of like a full code editing environment in the browser to happen, it has to be by like being able to run the whole thing locally in the browser and not this like world where you have some UI in the browser, but like the actual terminal no longer lives on your laptop, it lives somewhere else, right? Like so they built this whole web container technology to be able to basically run the whole node ecosystem in the browser. And it was really impressive from a technological standpoint. But there was like two things playing against them. One, like none of the companies building browser-based code IDEs could really get to the point where they could monetize well. And web containers still had limitations, right? Like there was a bunch of libraries that just wasn't web container compatible and so on, and that you couldn't use in that world. And sort of having to educate every single developer using your IDE on what packages they can and can't use, that's really hard, right?
Yeah.
So they were at this point where they were not doing too well. And like the last time I met him before they joined Bolt, right? Like it was like very clear that he was thinking about maybe I need to call it soon, right? Like and do some like maybe find some kind of like sweet like landing spot as an acquihire or something like that, right? Like and get somewhere. And then Bolt was sort of like the last shot they had, right? And what a shot. So like
Yeah. What a trajectory.
That's
Yeah.
a bold
and it was
bet,
funny
man.
because like we had long talked about like, hey, we should get like deployments to Netlify integrated into your IDE and interstack blitz and so on, right? Like, and we had kept sharing like as we built some of the APIs that also made their ways into like ChatGPT and other environments and so on, right? Like we kept sharing them with the team there, and I didn't actually know that they had any sort of real plans of integrating them until like right before, like right around the time Bolt went live, and I just got a mail from Eric being like, "Hey, can you raise the rate limits on our API key because I think we're about to like go way over them." And I was like, "What API? I didn't even know you had integration." And Bolt launched, and they just started sending like thousands of sites our way. So yeah, it was quite wild.
What a journey, dude.
Yeah, I mean, and what's wild is how quickly that journey's happened. You know,
Yeah.
it's you know, and yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's quite the moonshot of like all, and I think their background probably helped them, right? Like the fact
Totally.
of going through that journey of like building all the WebAssembly stuff, and now what they're doing with Bolt, it's
and it's still that like now it's kind of like a secret weapon, right? Like because now it gives Bolt this quality over any of the competitors, right? Like that the whole coding environment does actually live like entirely in your local machine when you open a Bolt project, right? Like it's not some remote container and so on, right? Like so the feedback loop is like very instant. Everything happens there. It's extremely cost efficient for them, right? Like they don't have to spin up like a server side cloud container for every single like vibe coder that's trying to build something, right? Like it becomes just the token cost for calculating code changes and the limitations. And I think that's an interesting lesson for sort of like the whole ecosystem also, right? Like the limitations of web containers in the world of large language models suddenly don't matter that much, because instead of having to teach every single developer interacting with their system, you can only use these packages and not that package, right? Like
Yeah.
they just have to get the right context in place so the LLM knows
which
Yeah.
packages.
what
Yeah.
are the
You train your
limitations,
own agent
and
instead
then
of
it
all
just
the people.
works, right? Like, and
Yeah.
suddenly it just works, and you just don't run into those problems when you're like normally working with Bolt. Like the agent just like sticks to the stuff that works there, right? Like, and now it's suddenly just a pure advantage. And I think that that's something we'll see, that we're still very early on, right? Like it's
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's just like how once people write most of their codes through LLMs, a lot of what's good or bad, what works well, what doesn't work well, is going to fundamentally change.
That's sick. Enough about Bolt.new though. We're here for Netlify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about. So you had
Agent Week.
Agent
right?
Week a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, and
Yeah, we had a couple of like, I mean, we had several really exciting launches. One is a little similar in the sense that like one tool that's also just exploded in usage together with these LLMs is Veet, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just proven to be simpler for the models to work with and reason about, and it has maybe also just like less historical baggage of changes and deprecated APIs and so on, right? Like
yes,
so it just turns out to like work really well in this LLM world, and has now like just become the basic for every framework except for Next.js, right? Like,
Of course.
Yeah.
and become sort of the basis for almost any coding LLM, like what they tend to work the best with, except for V0. But but that also means that we've built like a real good partnership with the Veet team. We're now the preferred deployment partner for Veet, and we've started like sort of building our local development tooling just directly into Veet through our Veet login, and that just means that traditionally we had to have this tool called Netlify Dev. That like
Yep.
if you want our whole environment with secret management and serverless functions and edge functions and everything to work locally with your framework, instead of starting the framework's dev server, you start Netlify Dev, and we essentially set up a little proxy in front of that dev server that can like implement our edge rules and redirects and invoke serverless functions and everything, right? Like, but now with Veet instead, you can just like install a Netlify plugin, and then any dev server based on Veet will work with Netlify functions or routing, everything like that, right? Like, so that was like one of the launches to also just like simplify like our level of integration and adapters with like all the Vite based frameworks. And then for non-Vite based frameworks, we can still like have the Netlify dev approach. And then we launched Netlify's MCP server, which I'm really excited about, right? Like, because it's actually like I made a little live coding session where I just like one click installed the MCP server in GitHub Copilot, right? Like, and immediately just by installing it there, that agent can kind of one shot a lot of things, as if it was like as integrated as Bolt, for example, right? Like in the sense that suddenly, like some people think of MCP as just a wrapper around an API and it's or CLI and so on. It's not true, right? Like because once you have the MCP in scope, you also sort of really encourage these models to use, and you've done like such an amazing job at Mastra with this, right? Like you start being able to help them get context, not just on your API, but on like your whole product and how to use it, right? Like, so once you install Netlify MCP, these agents will start asking like, how should I write serverless functions? How should I do storage? How should I do persistence and so on, right? Like, and suddenly like Netlify function starts working much better as a primitive. Netlify blob starts working much better. It can like figuring out doing cron jobs without you having to teach it how to and so on, right? Like, so it's really powerful.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, if you think about a human, we would have to go read all the docs, and you know this, you know, Netlify has a lot of products, so I might not be familiar with everything that Netlify can do, but who is familiar, who can get context much faster? The LLM.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you can leverage that LLM, ask questions, and now the LLM can do the searching for you and formulate, provide much better context of like how to actually approach solving some of these common problems that you maybe would have had to spend a lot of time researching, and you might have ended up in the wrong spot because you didn't know what you were looking for.
Yeah.
Totally. And the MCP really helps on that, because like if you just do that without the MCP, if you just hope it figures out our CLI and so on, right? Like we've been around for 10 years. Parts of our product has really changed, but the LLM might still have indexed a lot of old code written against our old APIs and our old ways of working. So by default, the LLMs might actually like do a bunch of anti-patterns, right? Like use old interfaces for our functions that don't give you access to all the features, or like are frustrating to work with, or don't work as well with streaming and so on, right? Like, but you plug in the MCP and suddenly they start doing the right thing. And then of course the MCP also allows deployments, which is like, I think one of the first that just like really supports that, right? Like Cloudflare has a bunch of MCPs, but you can't actually deploy through any of them, right? Like we really have that in place, and then all the admin functionality in anything, right? Like so MCP really exciting. And then we launched Netlify DB as well. So another pretty big launch for us in partnership with NeonDB, but again, really aimed against this agent experience, sort of really making sure that, again, in that live coding example, right? Like I just installed the MCP in GitHub Copilot, and then I asked it to build an app that would require a database, right? Like, and the MCP could just tell it use Netlify database, and all it had to do was just write the code. And then when you either run Netlify's dev server or you deploy to Netlify, we make sure that if a database isn't provisioned already, we provision one, right? Like, so again, really just allows single shotting database applications and getting them running. We had like a really fun, like one of the developers that had been working on the DB project. Once we launched, he tried a similar project with like installing the MCP in Augment. Another, like, for those that don't know, it's another code agent similar to Copilot, also in VS Code, but like specializes in indexing your code base a lot and so on, right? Like, there's so many of those. But he then asked the Augment build a real-time chat application with Netlify. And it built a real-time chat application, used the NeonDB behind the scenes, right? Like to get that up and running. And then he had also added the Playwright MCP server that allows the agents to go through a browser and test real websites, right? Like, so he asked Augment to test that the chat app worked when deployed to Netlify. And it did that by joining the chat.
That's
And
cool.
and he had also invited like a few of his friends to join the chat. So suddenly those started chatting to the code agent, and they started asking the code agent for features. And since it had access to like the code editor and to deployments through our MCP, it started like implementing those features and deploying, and then telling in the chat, refresh the browser and you'll see the feature implemented.
That's
And
AGI.
like crazy self-building app that started adding DMs and themes and notifications. And it was pretty wild to watch.
That would have been a great catching that on video, just like because it's like part scary. It's listening to the
like,
chat, because the chat could have told it to build anything, but also pretty powerful in the way that it was able to like just update it, like self-update based on feedback.
Yeah.
Do we have time to vibe something right now?
We could vibe something. I don't know. Like I have time.
See this in action.
Yeah. Let's see. Like let me share my screen if I can figure out how it works.
Yeah, there should be a share button just on the bottom.
Cool.
I gotta fix our camera here.
Now I'm sharing my screen. That always gets a little funky.
Yeah,
but let's see. So one of the things I vibe coded over time is just my own personal blog. Um, and on that blog, I actually like used our guide on building MCP servers with Netlify, right? Like, and I basically just took like the guide and gave it to an LLM and told it like I want an MCP server myself. And now my blog has an MCP server and can try just like, let's see if we can make this work.
And
I
can you
think
zoom 1 or 2 clicks? Yeah, that's better.
it's better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Plot MCP add. I think it's like this transport. We give the MCP server a name, and I think the URL for the MCP is just like this. I really don't like. Let's see if this works at all. But
Hey.
let's see. Cloud code. Yep.
CC.
Yeah.
There
Here
it
we
is.
go. We can see it has like it's connected. It has 3 tools, and the tools I added were these 3. Like, one tool to list the articles. Whoops, my battery. Maybe I should just quickly get a charger. Be right back.
Yeah,
Yeah, bro.
no worries.
Play
So
some elevator music
yeah,
or
we'll
something.
kill some time. We'll catch people up who are just joining. So if you are just joining us, we did a Mastra Speed Run. Abhi talked about the Arize conference and the demo that he gave there. We gave a little preview of Agent Network, and we talked workflows. We talked MCP. We brought Tyler on from the Mastra team, and we talked AI news. So we talked about all that's been happening.
We talked a lot of shit today too.
Yeah. Well,
I will be honest.
we did that every day.
That's true.
And then we have Matt from Netlify joining us, and we've been talking, all about all the stuff that Netlify has been releasing over Agents Week, and now we're seeing a little demo of Matt's blog's MCP server. So take it away, Matt. Nope, I cannot hear you though. We lost your audio.
Hello.
Now we can.
Hey,
Is
back.
better?
You're back.
Let me make sure. Is the sound still good? It might have switched. I think it's good. Okay. Yeah. So the MCP just has like 3 tools, because I didn't really know what tools I would really need for an MCP for my blog. One just lists the articles, and one gets a specific article. And the third one is like a fun one, right? Like, because I thought with this AX agent experience angel, let's learn how the agent experiences my MCP. So it's a tool to leave an agent net promoter score for how well the tools works, right? Like, so we can try to ask Claude and let's see. It's gonna go use the list article function. Get it here.
The dollar is just
Yep. Claude.
every cent from your bank account.
Yeah.
and then look.
Just counting their money, just as it racks up tokens.
Honestly, it's kind of freaking disrespectful, dude. Put the tokens in your face like that.
It both like told me, right? Like, recent articles, I built a personal MCP, like what was here. And now it's leaving an MCP, like an agent net promoter score of 9, saying that like the Billman blog MCP tools are excellent for accessing blog content. Very satisfied. Claude Code, I'll say like, yeah, go ahead and send it, right? Like, and now somewhere on my admin panel, I'll have some dashboard data here. Currently an NPS score of 70 for
Hey, that's pretty good.
Agent,
That's
right? I think in general these agents are like they typically like to say nice things to people. So I think
they do. They do. Tend to be more positive, right? They want you to be happy. They play to your ego a bit.
but now I thought like the thing that could be fun to like vibe code. I added, as I said, like Mastra has a pretty cool MCP server, so I added it here. I added Netlify's MCP server as well, and this is the actual like blog directory. And I thought it could be interesting to see if we can build and master a powered chat to actually like get a like that uses the MCP on the blog. Let's just clear the context first. And I prepared a little prompt, right? Like build a chat page with an agent built on Mastra and Netlify functions that uses the Billman block MCP to let visitors chat with Billman block. There's already an open API key set through the Netlify secrets already.
So who knows what that means? That's sick.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens.
Let it roll.
So this is always the weird thing with vibe coding live, right? Like you basically just sitting and praying that it works.
Yeah, you never really know. You know, sometimes it surprises you and it's amazing, and other times you get into a endless
really-
loop of debugging. But
You really don't know.
I love how it makes a to-do list.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least see this is one of the examples, right? Like where it's actually like looking up how should I actually use serverless functions, and it's really good it does that, because otherwise sometimes they go and do funky stuff with Netlify functions for some reason. Setting up master, and it also used mattress docs, right? Like, and I know it's the first, before you had the MCP server, I was actually playing around with this, and it was just like really hard to get the models to use master right. Again, because it's like young product, and like the latest like MCP docs wasn't in that training set and so on. And I tried to get them to read your website, and it worked so right. Like but like MCP just makes such a difference.
Some of our users, have told us, it's so cool that you did that, but in our opinion, it was a necessity because of all the reasons you were saying. It was so hard to get it to write master code that without that, I don't know how we could have done it.
No. And again, the part that people that don't get MCP, they don't get that part, it like the role it plays in essentially in the context engineering, right? Like that's.
I love that it's going this loop.
Yeah.
Nice. This is a good comment.
Yeah. Matija says, Matt is building the infra for AX, which is cool. The current infra is lacking in one of the bottlenecks for a huge unlock.
PMF, baby.
Yeah. And Lucas, of course, I already showed this one, said, Anthropic is so happy watching those token counts go up.
I know.
Dude, it's just their way of saying F you to us.
It's like, count those tokens.
I should say that I think I went to some Anthropic event and they gave me some free tokens, so I'm probably like still eating from those for a little bit.
That's good. You can eat for free for a while. They give you a taste,
Yeah.
I mean, but
it's like you're using like your local pusher giving out free fentanyl or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much what it is.
Oh man,
that's
hilarious.
But that is one of the things I like, maybe like or don't like about Claude Code, but Cursor is kind of incentivized to kind of limit your tokens because they, but Claude Code, they, for the most part, they kind of want you to, they want you to use the tokens up, but they're going to also try to give you the best results because of it. So, I've really spent a lot of time in Claude Code lately.
Yeah, me too. Also because I'm kind of like in this mindset of like, I want to try to really live in that world where I don't even have my code editor open, right? Like where I'm really not looking at the code. And see like what does it take to become a good engineer without ever looking at the code directly. And Claude Code just has that aesthetic of right, like you're not like you're just talking to the agent about the code, right? Like,
and you kind of send it off and let it do its thing for a while, check in on it, answer some questions, send it off again.
And then in the end, it always does things like in this case, for example, I told it that there was, maybe it didn't. No, it didn't. Okay, good. Like I thought it was saying that it was adding a .in file, which would be like
annoying, but it's just telling me to do it, which I don't need to, because like there should be one in the environment. But let's see what happens. Let's spin it up and see if it builds something usable or not.
I mean,
You
this
really
is
don't know.
where you never know.
It's where you never know. It's the excitement of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
What-
hey, you
what
gotta
did I
roll
get
the
today?
dice.
Dude, we're doing it live.
Yeah,
man.
you roll the
Yeah,
dice.
Doing it live. I mean, so far so good. Let's go to chat and see what happens.
No type errors. No type errors. No type errors. No type errors. Oh, it would have checked itself actually.
You'd
Anyway.
hope. Yeah, you'd have thought.
Why is it so slow?
Oh, I think we lost you a little bit.
Little puzzled by the speed of this.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to actually work the first time. You're always hopeful, but you never, you know. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you can
Yeah.
one shot it.
I feel like it's just probably something small. Maybe.
It usually is a little thing, right? A couple little things, and
I,
I think we kind of lost Matt a little
The
bit. here.
network connection, I think, is off.
sometimes it does. Let me just try to quit stuff.
Yeah, we
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's happening here. Here we go. It loaded. I think
Oh,
my
hey.
whole laptop
Oh, this-
just like almost died. It's
Yeah.
actually here.
I hope that's
It's-
not Mastra really.
Yeah, it was your CPUs were spinning.
yeah.
That definitely couldn't have been Mastra, but who knows? We'll look into it.
Some error. What is it saying? MCP client connection failed. Why did it fail?
Here, connecting, failed to connect.
Command or URL? Maybe it wrote the
Yeah,
MCP client wrong.
Yeah, I must have wrote the MCP client slightly
Mhm.
wrong, but it gave you the chat interface, which is nice. And I'm assuming there's
Yeah. I mean, I think I think I might cheat and look at the code.
yeah. I mean,
Wow,
for the
I
sake
Save
of
the tokens.
for the sake of your tokens, your free tokens.
I think it could also just be like that something really missed up. Like my laptop is just like struggling right now. I think for some reason the live screen sharing is like disagreeing with it.
Yeah, and you get you get the plus of the live stream software. Yeah.
Yeah, I think something there is.
Skynet's attacking
Let's
us.
see.
So that is
so-
wrong.
Yeah, just instead of transport.
Yeah, it should be it's URL, right? And then it's just the URL.
Yeah, true. It should,
So
shouldn't
so I think you just change transport to URL. Yeah, it should just be URL.
and right now I can just do without that whole
Yeah.
base URL. Like that's nice because technically it's trying to make it work against the development server and development and so on. But right now let's just be a little more brute force-ish. Looks right?
Yep, I think that's right.
I hope so.
Let's see. Let's see if we get something back this time. Good thing having the Mastra team on call for this.
Looking at the code like the good old
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, we still have to look at code.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I could have like started like asking like Mastra to debug, ask Cloud Code to debug this, but just like I think my laptop really is struggling with something
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be pressing it. Oh wow, Slack helper. Let me force quit Slack. Okay,
That
not
was good
quite
code.
there.
So, and yeah, I just
not
moving
quite
that.
there. It was close. It was close.
Yeah. We got a comment that says someone, Mattia, doesn't really like Claude Code as you lose the IDE context. But I will say one of the things, if you can install the Claude Code has a VS Code plugin,
Yeah, you can.
and you can open it up in a side tab just like you would, Cursor agent or something, or your VS Code agent. And so I've been using Claude Code also. I like it on the CLI, but I also have been using it in my IDE as well. So you can kind of have you can have the best of both worlds.
Let me see. I'm gonna cheat a little. This one I actually did like right before. Why didn't it reset? Because it's not there. I think this was the one.
Remember the time?
This was my previous take on the exact same prompt.
Yeah. Hey,
And I
sometimes
did like right before I joined just to see if it worked. The first take actually pretty much one shotted it. This time it got something wrong in the MCP setup, but let's just try it once.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looked like it was pretty close, right?
Yeah.
So
it's pretty close.
rather than spending all the time debugging, it's nice just to see it live and see it working.
Yeah. Let's see if it works this time. Like it could also just be that the live streaming is more than my MacBook Air can handle right now.
There need some M10s around here, dude.
Yeah, we need.
Yeah, I know.
Like it's going on a mission to Mars, honestly. Sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
And Lucas has a nice comment. We lose the IDE context, but at least we look like movie hackers when we're on the CLI all the time. So
That's a thing. Let's go see if we can get the end-to-end stuff running or not. Sorry about like I really don't know why the live streaming here is so rough on my pure MacBook. Something must be putting it in a bad mood, but here we go.
All right, fingers crossed.
Let's see.
Is it gonna work? Moment of truth.
Moment of truth. Post to MCP. Get MCP. Post MCP. Some stuff is going on.
Wow. It's always, yeah, it looks like
something
could not connect.
Something failed.
Streamable HTTP.
Bummer.
Well.
Oh well.
We almost one-shotted it.
Dude. I remember I spent like 20 minutes in a workshop fiddling with Tailwind. And we were like doing a vibe coding thing. I hate when that happens. That looks right.
Yeah, I mean, the URL looks right. You're getting the tool set.
If you scroll down to your tools, well, I guess it's right here.
What was the request URL? No, but like, I think this might not even be the right version.
New URL, and it creates another new. Yeah, maybe you want to hard code it and see.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's see if it works.
Give it a shot.
What was there? Where did it end up running this one? I wonder if I have something running in the background somewhere.
Sick.
Okay. We're definitely taking a drink on this one. This is
Yeah.
going to be the one.
Let's see. Third time's the charm. Or not.
We're going to find out.
Let's see.
Hasn't blown up yet.
Something's happening in the background here. Go. Let's see if I can load anything on while live sharing. If I can, I'll go see here. Let's go find the actual log. Let's find the logs. Let's go look at the function logs. It's the MCP server. Something's happening. 348. Here we go.
Hey, everyone take a drink.
Here are the
Cheers.
latest articles. Woohoo.
We did it.
We did it. The real question will be, did it leave?
Did it leave a review?
I don't know. might be this one. I'm not sure.
Yeah, a 9. Not too bad.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so easy. Like you have all these Netlify primitives that, I mean, obviously we were like one-shotting stuff, but if you're like making a serious project and you're vibing and doing stuff, I can see how you don't have to worry about shit. You just make moves.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the current state we're in, right? Like nothing, it doesn't always guarantee it's going to work the first time, but it gets you further, and then you could chat with it. It would probably be able to debug itself if you really spend the time on it. If you weren't, if you're willing to spend some tokens, you could get it there, or you could, if you are an engineer, you can still jump in and make the fixes and get it to work.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how far it's come. And as I said, like I'm playing a lot around with Cloud Code because I'm really trying that. Like it helps me. Like in the beginning, it's like a really weird feeling when you are a really experienced engineer and you start like really working with these models, because it kind of breaks the whole, like 90% of your existing skill set starts being like really weird, right?
Yeah.
But you also like discover that like 10% of your existing skill set is suddenly like 1,000 times as powerful, right? Like, because you really understand what it's kind of moving around and so on. And as I said, I'm like trying to give myself a lot of these challenges of like working in the context of really trying to work as little directly with the code as possible, as much with just like get the model to doing, because I believe that eventually we'll get to a point where that will be how most engineering is, right? Like I think code will be very unimportant. I think the current state where we think about it as like, okay, but we need engineers to review all the code and so on, right? Like it's just like it doesn't make sense that like humans will be spending a bunch of their time sitting in GitHub and reading machine generated code and correcting it. Like it's not going to be a thing, right? Like, so I think we're going to build more and more sort of full feedback loops that allow us to work more and more without looking at the code. And that won't happen like straight over, right? Like it's like right now it will still for most things, like at this very moment, you definitely still for more complex things need to be able to go in and look at the code and sometimes just write it and so on. But I think it can be a healthy exercise to sort of start trying to already live in that future where code has become completely unimportant and just like an artifact in the same version of the output from our compiler, right? Like even something like how often do you look today at the output of the TypeScript compiler, right? Like I'm also like, it's not that long ago that like first CoffeeScript came along, and it was like one of the really important qualities of the CoffeeScript compiler was that it generated JavaScript that you could really read and you could understand, because you kind of still really wanted to keep check on whether it did the right thing and so on, right? Like then we had the first transpilers. It was still very much that like, oh, they better generate something that we can verify is good JavaScript. And today, I don't think anyone spends any time looking at like the output of TypeScript and saying like, oh, does it really generate good JavaScript or not? Right? Like, who cares? It like the compiler said it works. It probably works.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Yeah.
with these LLMs, we're gonna end up in the same world where right now we care a lot about like is the code following our linting rules, right?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that is gonna be really like,
Yeah.
it's just not gonna be a thing.
Save so much time on CI from not running prettier on your whole code base.
Yeah.
Who cares about commas anymore, you know?
You'll save what you spend on tokens by not running prettier CI runs anymore.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This was sick, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So appreciate you stopping by. Tyler has you need that Claude Max 20X plan, Claude Opus for the whole day. Yeah. But yeah, thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks for
seeing you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Great learning a little bit more about all the Agent Week launches you had and doing some vibe coding together and getting this chat app to work. So definitely want to have you on again next time. You have the next big thing to announce, which I'm sure is coming soon.
Yep. Plenty of stuff in the works. So yeah, it would be fun. And thanks for having me.
See you around, dude.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Great one. Bye.
Dude, that was sick.
Yeah, dude.
That was sick.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. I think we're about to wrap up. We've been going strong for an hour and 40 minutes. So that's
275 of y'all.
Yeah, so thanks for
Admirals of AI.
If you're one of the 275 that have watched some of this, we like to think it's fun. Obviously, some of you agree, but we appreciate you being here. We did the Mastra Speed Run. We talked some AI news. We had Matt from Netlify. We do this pretty much every Monday, usually around noon Pacific. Today was a little later for, had some other things going on, but appreciate you all for being here. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, tune in Friday for the Canadians.
Yeah, we do have another stream on Fridays. Mastra Code A. I don't know if they should be doing it this week, I would guess.
Oh wait,
but it's
July 4th.
It's the 4th, so maybe they'll take it off in celebration, even though, I don't know. They don't celebrate it, but
do they?
No, July 1st.
Oh, tomorrow's their holiday.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
So
well,
I don't know, Tyler, if you're still watching, I don't know if you're going to be doing a live stream on Friday, but normally on Friday, they do a Mastra Code A, which they actually dive a little deeper in the code, and then we get to maybe on this stream. So,
all right.
Well, should we wrap it up?